Hi all, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a brief unboxing of 4 new Stendker Discus I've got in. 3 solid fire red of the Stendker line and 1 Marlboro red. I wanted 4 solid fire, but unfortunately I only had 3 in stock, so I got the Marlboro red. As adults it's very difficult to tell the difference between the two anyway. Generally speaking, you just get more of a deep red colour on the solid fire. Now they range between 6.5 and 8 centimetres. Same as most of my other fish, Stendker bred, so the German breeder. They've been delivered this morning. They're just floating in the tank acclimating. I'll try and get you a half decent view of some of them. It's very difficult at this age to tell the difference between the solid fire and the Marlboro red. I think the smaller of the lot is the Marlboro, and then the rest here are the solid fires. Actually, maybe thinking about it, I think probably this one's the Marlboro, but again, they don't A, develop full coloration till they're 10 centimetres plus, and B, obviously in shipping etc, they do lose a bit of their coloration through stress. Now they're going into a small grow out tank to start with. In here is just, if you've seen my previous videos, you've got the pleco cave at the bottom here with a Bristol nose in there, sponge filter which is turned off at the moment just so we haven't got the sound of the air pump, and then you've also got these 2 small blue diamonds. So I've held these back from a previous batch, just simply because they weren't developing in size as quickly as the rest, so I've held them back, and hopefully having some other fish feeding in this tank will encourage them to feed a little bit heavier. Now in terms of quarantine issues, I've got no problems because all my fish come from the same supplier, a very trusted supplier. They're all Stendker Discus at this stage, so I don't need to worry about cross-contamination or having to do any sacrificial lamb processes or quarantining or anything like that. Many times I've bought from this supplier on many different occasions and I've never had any issues just introducing them to the rest of the system with the other fish. It's a really trusted supplier and great quality fish. Now I'm going to show you how I take in a delivery, or how I process the delivery. At the moment they've been floating in the tank for about half an hour. The tank is just under 29 degrees, 28.6, and the bags are now at pretty much the same temperature. Now I don't do a drip acclimation, which some people do. I never have, never will. I use what's called the drop and plop technique, which they're in sealed bags, and as you can see there's plenty of oxygen pumped into these bags. The second you remove the elastic band at the top, air rushes in, and any foulness released in the water, any ammonia or nitrite that's sat in the water, will react with the sudden rush of carbon dioxide and airflow, and the pH in the bag will rapidly change. So people that sit there and leave discus in a bag for 20 minutes, half an hour while they're slowly dripping water in, you know, each to their own etc, but I've seen quite drastic changes in the pH, sometimes going up as much as 1.5, where it just reacts with the water that's been sat in there a while. Now I'm pretty lucky in the way that the dealer I buy from is quite local to me, so he actually delivered them himself, so I presume they were bagged up this morning and delivered within a matter of 3 or 4 hours, so they weren't in overnight, so they're not as stressed as you would normally find them. However, I have bought with an overnight courier before and never had any issues, never had any dead on arrivals. I think that just shows who you buy from. When you're going to be buying discus, make sure you find a trusty source. If you can't go and pick it up yourself and you do rely on getting it couriered to you, make sure it's a licensed courier, and look at some feedback, see what other people have said on YouTube etc. Right, I'm now going to do the drop and plop technique and show you me actually releasing them into the tank. So here I've set up just a food grade clear plastic tub, rinsed out, no soap or anything like that in it. Now the fish aren't actually going to come in contact with the tub, but I always keep this purely for fish keeping, so not one that I use for anything else. There's no risk ever of getting any chemicals. With the fish itself, it's going to be a little bit hard one-handed while I'm using the camera to release, but I will show you as best as I can. So any good supplier before shipping will make sure they are double or triple bagged. In this instance we've got two really thick plastic bags and it was held together very tightly by rubber bands at the top. All you're going to do is float your net, rest your net on top of the bucket, and then hold the bag and pour it through. So there he is, water's now poured through, wastewater in the bucket, and then just gently lifting your discus up into the tank. Don't force him to come out, just open the net and let him swim out on his own accord. And now I'll move on with the other three fish. Okay, so they've been in the tank now about an hour, so they've had time to settle and acclimate a little bit more, get used to the water, etc., and the other fish that are in the tank. You can see the one of the blue Turks just in the tank next door. There is a permanent divider there, but I don't know if they can just glimpse through and see another fish, but they seem to be quite comfortable in this front corner. I have just turned off the air pump to make the video, so that may have spooked them a little bit. That's why they're all clustered together at the front, but obviously bear in mind they've only been in there just over an hour now. Now their colours are starting to show. You can see the difference between the solid reds and the Marlborough. So the Marlborough is the one at the back, a little bit lighter colour, and then these are the solid fire reds. And then obviously, as mentioned earlier, you've got the two little blue diamond fry down there. They don't seem to be too affected by them. They've been in there just with plecos for the last 2 weeks, so they're kind of quite comfortable to be with other fish, I think. Now I've lowered the water level. Always remember when adding new fish, drop the water level down to accommodate the bags. When you're going to be floating the bags in there at the beginning, you're obviously going to displace some of the water, and many times I've flooded the lounge. Now I've got a fish room. I'll try not to, but you put the bags in there and it's going to displace a bit of the water, so make sure you drop that down before you float the bags, and then I'll gradually raise that water level back up, which actually goes just above the lid here, which is 16 inches from the bottom, and I'll raise that up over the next couple of hours. Parameters in the tank are fantastic. Now I always say when you're buying new fish and introducing them to a tank, be inquisitive with your supplier or breeder. Ask as many questions as you can about feeding and what they're used to feeding in terms of time scale, and also food. Some breeders will throw in frozen beef heart. Stendker, however, have a tradition of defrosting the beef heart thoroughly first. You know, I think at the beginning stick to what they're used to, so it's familiar, and then, you know, frozen and unfrozen, you know, I don't think there's a huge difference in it. I've fed frozen and slightly defrosted before as well. I can see the benefits in defrosted in the way it doesn't shock the inside of the fish when they swallow a piece of ice cold food, but also, you know, we've all got lives to lead outside of the hobby, and sometimes it's much easier to lob a few frozen cubes in. Now I even asked the breeder in terms of lighting timescales, so what they're used to in terms of natural light of an evening and so on, and try and mirror that during the first week, just so they happily settle into the tank. What I've also done is I've isolated this tank from the main filtration system just for the first 4 hours. The sponge filter in there has got enough beneficial bacteria to support any waste they're going to put out in the meantime. Now the reason why I separate it from the main system is I add a few ingredients. I add aquarium salt. I'll show you the product. Yeah, so as I was saying, I do add aquarium salt, a very small portion, but either aquarium salt or Epsom salt is useful the day of delivery, to just add a small amount to the tank. It's beneficial because in the bags or transferring into the net, they can get little fin nips. They can also get a little bit of split fin or gill issues, and the salt will just help ensure no bacterial infections set into those wounds. So I just dilute a small amount of salt into the water when they first arrive. I also, even though the water is dechlorinated, I add some of the API stress coat. It does contain aloe vera, and it is proven to reduce fish stress, and also it just maintains a good water quality for their arrival, and ensures that any stress they've experienced through the delivery and shipping process is managed as best as possible. I'm now going to just pop in some beef heart, as I have defrosted it. I'm not overly hopeful they're going to take straight away because they have only been in there an hour, and just pouring it in has freaked them out a bit. But we'll see how interested they are in food at this point. and see how long it takes them. Now I've put more food in than normal just so it is clearly visible to them. They are used to beef heart made by Stendker, which is exactly what this is, and that's the Good Heart brand by Stendker. Now I make my own fish food, my own beef heart. I also feed Tetra Prima pellets, but for new fish I do just keep them on what they're used to. As you can see, one of the solid red fires, less than an hour in the tank, is already tucking in to a bit of beef heart, which is a great sign, and hopefully the others will follow. The two little blue diamonds there, they're a little bit shy. I don't think they know what's going on, but once they detect the food in the water, they will move in on it as well. And you can see the Marlborough red there tucking into a piece at the back. As I say, far too much food for the amount of fish in there, but just so they can see it, it's visible, and the smell of it is in the water, so they know that there's food available. I've put in a little bit extra for these new guys, so they feel comforted. Right, now I'll give you a bit of an update on the fry. So we've been raising some fry artificially ourselves in the fish room, and I'll show you where we're at with them today. So right now I'm midway through a water change with the fry. We still have around 100 fry. You can see them floating in what I call the transfer jug. The transfer jug is the jug that I move them into whilst I'm cleaning the main white container that they stay in through the early fry stages. Now, a lot of people just do water changes out of the white dish. I actually twice a day take them completely out of the white dish, take the white dish out, take the air stone out, take the black surface they've been feeding off of out, clean it all. Now I think that's much more important because a lot of bacteria grows in there. We're not reliant upon establishing a colony of healthy bacteria in there at this stage. There's no sponge filter or anything like that to help digest any waste. We are just reliant upon frequent water changes to keep that toxicity level down. Now we've barely lost any in the first 3 days. We're going to move them back over now to the white tub. We've just been warming up the water in the tub, and we're now on a 50-50 solution of dechlorinated tap water and RO water. So we're gradually getting them used to the tank conditions, which my tank conditions here are either HMA filtered when I've got the filter up and running, or just generally dechlorinated water, and I tend to use Seachem Prime to dechlorinate the water, or the product I showed you earlier, which is the API stress coat. Right, I'm going to move them over now to the white bowl, and then we'll be able to show you them feeding. So as you can see, they're all transferred over now. We're 100 still, to maybe just over 100 fry on day 3 free swimming. At the moment it's just a clean bowl, the food isn't in there. I add the fish first and then put the food in after, delicately place the black or dark item in there so that they can find it. In terms of the location of the white bowl, it's still floated in the tank, so it gets the bulk of its heat, or all of its heat, from the tank itself. The tank's running at 28.7 degrees and the water itself is pretty much exactly the same. The transfer jug is directly next to it, just with an air stone trickling over, ready for when I need to move them into it next time. And I keep it very close. The reason being is when you're trying to turkey baste 100 plus fry out of a floating jar, it is somewhat challenging. I'll add their food now, and then you'll be able to see them feeding off of the black surface, which is the artificial parent. As you can see, the black surface has now been added with the egg formula, which in my previous video you can see me mixing up and what I put in there. Spread thinly all over it, and you'll see the discus now starting to move in. If they struggle to move in on it, if they struggle to relocate it, just pick them up with a turkey baster and gently spit them out back onto the black surface. That's exactly replicating what the parents would do anyway. But generally speaking, they should move in after sort of a few minutes and start feeding. I'll leave you today with them happily feeding away. Give it a couple of minutes for them to move in, then give you a quick view of them feeding away. And I'll tune in again tomorrow, and I will have an update for you on the new arrivals and also the fry to let you know just how they're getting on. Thanks very much for watching. See you again soon. Bye.